Part 1 Preliminary Section 1 to 4. Which declaration can be granted by civil court under Section 34 of Specific Relief Act? None of these. Under the Specific Relief Act, specific relief can be granted only for enforcing individual civil rights, which of the following is not correct regarding Section 6 of Specific Relief Act 1963? It would be necessary for plaintiff in such a case to prove the absolute title of the property is not correct. Which one is correct are? The period of limitation for filing a suit therein is 6 months. No suit against the government can be brought under the said section. The order, decree passed under the said section is immune from challenge by appeal as well as review. An instrument is not settlement under Specific Relief Act, whereby an interest in the property is devolved by a will. The word and expression used in Specific Relief Act but not defined in the Act have meaning as defined in the Indian Contract Act. Which section of SRA 1963 provides that a specific relief to be granted only for enforcing civil rights, not for enforcing penal law? Section 4. Find out the correct statement. Specific relief can be granted for enforcing individual civil right and not for enforcing penal laws. Specific relief under SRA 1963 can be granted for enforcing only individual civil rights. Specific relief can be granted for enforcing individual civil rights. A suit for possession of immovable property based on the title by the plaintiff who had been disposed of can be filed even beyond 6 months and up to a period of 12 years as provided in Article 65 of Limitation Act when deposition is of a person who is title holder of the immovable property. In Specific Relief Act, all other word and expression used but not defined, then their definition and meaning would be the same has been defined under Indian Contract Act. For the purpose of Specific Relief Act, the word settlement means an instrument including codicil or will, whereby the destination or devolution of successive interest in immovable property may dispose of or agree to be disposed of. Which of the statement about Specific Relief Amendment Act 2018 is correct? Will apply to the pending cases. Specific Relief Act 1963 is the product of Ninth Report of Law Commission of India on Specific Relief Act 1877. What is true of the Specific Relief Act? All of the above. It is a procedural law. It supplements the CPC. It is founded on English law. Specific Relief Act 1963 was enacted on year 13th December 1963. Specific relief is granted for enforcing individual civil rights. Under Specific Relief Act 1963, specific relief may be granted for enforcing individual civil right. SRA came into the operation on 1st March 1964. Enacted in 13 December 1963, enforced on 1st March 1964. Part 2. Specific Relief. Chapter 1. Recovering Possession of Property. Section 5 to 8. Recovery of specific movable property is defined Section 5 of Specific Relief Act. Recovery of specific immovable property may be made under Section 5 of the Specific Relief Act according to the Law of Code of Civil Procedure. Mere possession of title is enough to maintain an action under Section 5 of Specific Relief Act 1963. Under Section 6, Subsection 2, Subclause A of Specific Relief Act, no suit shall be brought after expiry of what period from the deposition? 6 months. Specific Relief Act. Which of the following contract can be specifically enforced? A contract for which is in its nature determinable. Which one of the following preposition is not correct? B is not correct. Which one is correct? R. The plaintiff is entitled to seek a decree of specific performance of contract of compensation in lieu of specific performance under the Specific Performance Act. The court may grant possession, partition, or separate possession to the plaintiff in addition to specific performance of contract. The court may direct refund, earnest money, or deposit made by specific performance is refund. Which one of the following are true about the word possession used in the section 5 of a Specific Relief Act? This question is omitted. Which one of the following kind of remedy cannot be granted under Specific Relief Act? Writ of prohibition, which are granted declaratory decree, rescission of contract, recovery of the possession of the property. Under Section 6 of Specific Relief Act, if a person is disposed without his consent of immovable property, otherwise than in due course of law, to recovery possession, he has to prove his prior possession. What is prescribed period of limitation for filing civil suit challenging the disposition of plaintiff on ground that the land has been illegally acquired by the government? None, as the suit is non-maintainable. Which one of the following section of SRA deal with recovery of specific movable property? 7. In an order or decree passed in a suit presented under Section 6 of SRA is neither appealable nor reviewable. If a person disposed from immovable property without due course of law, he has to file a suit for possession within 6 months. A suit for recovery of possession under SRA cannot be filed against a government. SRA where the agreement is made with minor, fill the blank, cannot be given. A suit under Section 6 of SRA can be filed for recovery of possession of immovable property. Under Section 6 of SRA, a suit for recovery of possession of immovable property may be brought within dash from the date of deposition. 6 months. The question of title is irrelevant under Section 6 of SRA. Suit for deposition of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA shall be brought within 6 months from the deposition. Under SRA, a suit for recovery of possession can be filed in respect of both movable and immovable property. SRA, plaintiff without having any title file a suit for permanent injunction against the deposition based on long possession. Law respect to possession Plaintiff cannot be deposed except in accordance with law. Under Section 6 of SRA, a suit can be brought by tenancy of holding over. By virtue of Section 6 of SRA, a suit for possession of immovable property can be filed within the period of dash of deposition, 6 months. A suit for possession of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA can be filed within 6 months of deposition. No suit for recovery of possession may be instituted under Section 6 of SRA against government. Under Section 6 of SRA, both A and B are correct. A tenant can file a suit for possession even against the landlord on the ground that he was unlawfully disposed of the landlord by the landlord. No question of title, either of the plaintiff or defendant, can be raised on or going into that case. A defendant in a suit for recovery of possession of immovable property cannot take the plea of lawful title, and in alternative the plea of adverse possession, as two are authentical to each other, antithetical. Which section of SRA prohibit filing of a case against the government? Section 6. No suit under Section 6 of SRA of the Act for recovery of possession of immovable property may not be instituted a person disposed without the consent against the government. A person is disposed of the immovable property without due course of law. When can he bring a suit of recovery of possession under Section 6 of the Act? Period. 6 months. Limitation to file a suit for recovery of SRA under Section 6 of SRA is 6 months. A suit for recovery of possession of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA can be filed against a private individual only. Saroj was granted government land. She was disposed without her consent. She instituted a suit against the government under Section 6 of SRA for recovering the possession of property. The court rejected the plaint under Order 7 Rule 11D of CPC. Whether rejection is a proper? Yes, because suit under Section 6 against the government would not be lie. Under Section 6 of SRA, a person can sue for recovery of possession of immovable property after 6 months from the date of deposition. A person cannot sue after 6 months. Suit for recovery of possession of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA can be filed against a private individual only. In a suit under Section 6 of SRA, the court can none of the above. As a shopkeeper has kept the good for sale on the pavement outside the shop and constructed temporary overhead shield, Flying Squad of and City of Delhi demolished the temporary construction and seized the good from the pavement. without giving him any notice. After 1 year, S filed a suit for recovery of possession of the pavement against NCT Delhi under Section 6 of SRA. The suit is barred to be filed both A and B against the government after the prescribed period. In order to succeed in a suit for a specific performance of contract for sale, the plaintiff has to avail the proof that his readiness and willingness to perform the contract. The limitation period for filing a suit by a person disposed of immovable property is within 6 months from the date of deposition. Under Section 6 of SRA, suit by a person disposed of immovable property shall not be brought after the expiry of 6 months from the date of deposition. Question of title to immovable property in a suit under Section 6 of SRA is irrelevant. Under Section 6 of SRA, a suit of the possession of immovable property can be filed within 6 months from the deposition. Which section provide for a specific remedy of possession by way of summary procedure for the person disposed of immovable property without the consent, otherwise due course of law. Section 6. What is the time limit for filing a recovery of possession of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA? 6 months. No suit for recovery of possession can be instituted by person disposed without the consent of immovable property otherwise than due course of the law against the government. A suit filed by the plaintiff P against D under Section 6 of SRA is decreed in the favor of P. The remedy against the decree for D to file revision. Which one of the following section of SRA deal with the recovery of immovable property? Section 6. Period of limitation for filing the possession under Section 6 of SRA is 6 months. Which one of the following is incorrect in reference of Section 6 of SRA? This section bar a person from suing or establish his title of the property is wrong. No suit under this section shall be brought against the government. No appeal lie an order or decree passed in any suit instituted in this section. If any person is disposed without his consent of immovable property otherwise than due course of law, he may institute a suit for recovery of possession notwithstanding with other title that may be set up in such suit. 6 months from the date of the deposition. A, B, C are co-partner. A is in separate possession of joint family property. He sell it to D and put D in the possession. B and C sue for declaration of title of the property in a joint family property. The court will dismiss the suit as plaintiff are in the position to claim consequential relief of possession. Under Section 7 of SRA, a person is entitled to the possession of a specific movable property may recover it in the manner provided by which legislation? Code of Civil Procedure. Under Section 7 of SRA, the recovery of movable property can be made by all of the above: finder of movable property, buyer of movable property, bailee of movable property. Suit under Section 8 of SRA is not competent against a person who is the owner of article claimed. Under Section 8 of SRA, a person shall not entitled to specific relief of delivery of a movable property in which one of the following case: when compensation is money, would be adequate relief for the loss of thing claimed. Section 8 of SRA can be invoked against a person who has possession or control over the article. Which of the following is not an essential condition for applicability of Section 8 of SRA? The defendant must be the owner of property. Which one are essential condition? Article must be a movable property. Article must be in the possession and control of the defendant. Plaintiff must be entitled to immediate possession of the article. Section 8 of SRA cannot be invoked against a person who has control over the property. Following is not an essential condition for applicability of Section 8 of SRA. The defendant must be the owner of the property. Suit for recovery of possession based on the previous possession of a person can be filed by such a person even against the real owner of the property who has disposed by him within 6 months of his disposition. The engagement diamond ring of Anne was stolen by T, a thief who sold it to J Jewelers. Anne filed a suit for recovery of the ring against J. J contended that he is ready to pay the price for the ring. Whether the decree for recovery of ring can be refused on the ground that none of these. Compensation in term of money would be adequate relief for loss of the ring. Wrong. J is a bona fide purchaser of the consideration. Wrong. There is no dual relation between N and J. Wrong. It is the principle of law that person who has been long and continue possession can protect the same by seeking injunction against any person in the whole world other than the true owner. The above statement is true. Chapter 2: Specific Performance of Contracts. Section 9 to 25. Section 9 of Specific Relief Act provides for the defense which can a person against whom the relief of specific performance is claimed may plead. Section 10 of SRA provides for the contract which can be specifically enforced. In the case of breach of contract to sale of immovable property, the court shall draw a presumption that breach of contract cannot be adequately relieved by money compensation. Which one of the following contracts cannot be specifically enforced? A contract which is in its nature determinable. In which one of the following section of SRA is the specific performance of contract enforceable? Section 10. Which one of the following can specifically enforced under Section 10 of SRA 1963? Chalets of specific value. Decree for specific performance of movable property can be granted when the plaintiff sue for 50-year-old painting. Under Section 10 of SRA, the specific performance cannot be granted if there is no concluded contract. Granted when there is a concluded contract, the compensation is a money, is not an adequate relief, there exists no standard form of asserting the actual damage. Section 11 of SRA refers specific performance of contract connected with trust. Under Section 11 of SRA 1930, a contract made by trustee in exercise of his power or in breach of trust is not specifically enforceable. Under Section 10 of SRA, which of the following can be specifically enforceable? Contract to get objects of historic value. Section 11 of SRA provides for a specific performance of contract connected with trusts. Section 12 subclause 2 of SRA applies where the part is remaining unperformed of contract is a small proportion. Contract for sale of a Maruti Claire car is can specifically enforced. A specific performance of a part of contract has been dealt under Section 12. For Section 12, subsection 4 of the specific SRA 1963 to apply, both A and B, a party to contract must be divisible. A part that can specifically enforceable in independent and separate from the other part. In case of SR, specific performance of part of contract, the purchaser may relinquish claim to further performance and remaining part of contract has right to compensation. And the provision regarding SRA, specific performance of right of contract are contained under the SRA in Section 12. Section 12 of SRA applies where a part which remain unperformed, the contract is small. Under Section 12 subsection 2 of SRA, part performance of contract can be enforced by both A and B, the promisor, the promisee. Which one of the following section deal with the specific performance of part of the contract? Section 12. A singer has entered into contract with B for giving performance subsequently. A commit breach of contract. What remedy is available to B? B can claim damage for A. Under Section 12 of SRA, general rule is that specific performance of a part of contract shall not be granted. Section 13 of SRA confer certain right on purchaser of immovable property. The readiness and willingness of party seeking a specific performance of contract must be proved. An order allowing the prayer for injunction should ensure that all of the above. The plaintiff has personal interest in the subject matter. Order should be not impleaded to delay the progress and completion of any infrastructure project. The plaintiff should not have accused in breach of contract. Which one of the following is correct with respect to substituted performance of contract? The party claiming breach can get the contract performed either himself or through agent after notice to the party who has committed the breach and claim compensation of performance from the party committing the breach. The correct position of law with respect to damage in lieu of specific performance would be neither of the statement is correct. Section 13 of SRA has no application when transfer has been effected in respect of a property in which vendor has title. In which one of the following contract can be specifically enforced as per the provision of Section 14 of the SRA? All of the above. A. Contract to marry B. A contract with B that consideration of 1,000 rupees to be paid to him by B. He will paint a picture for B. A. An author contract with B. A. Publisher to complete the literary work. Which section of SRA provide about a specific performance of contract which cannot be specifically enforced? Section 14. Contract not specifically enforceable have been enumerated in Section 14. In which one of the following cases would be specific performance of any contract not be enforceable by the court? Where compensation in money can be afforded for non-performance of contract as an adequate relief. Which one of the following contract cannot be specifically enforceable as per the provision of Section 14 of the Act? Contract which is determinable in its nature. A contract with B to sing for 12 months at B theaters and not to sing in public and anywhere elsewhere is B cannot obtain specific performance to sing, but he is entitled to injunction restraining A from singing at any other place of public entertainment. Which one of the following is correct statement? A contract for non-performance of which compensation in money is an adequate relief is not specifically enforceable. For granting specific performance of contract for construction of any building, the following condition has to be fulfilled. A. The building is described in the contract in terms of significant precise to enable the court to determine the exact nature of the building. The plaintiff has a sufficient interest in the performance of contract, and the interest is of such a nature that compensation in money for non-performance of contract is not adequate relief. The defendant had, in pursuance of contract, obtained possession of the whole or any part of the land on which building is to be constructed. All of the above is the right answer. Under SRA, power of court to engage expert is provided under which section? 14A. Specific performance of contract is allowed where compensation is not an adequate relief. In which one of the following cases the specific performance of contract is not ordered? All of the above, where pecuniary compensation would afford adequate relief, where the act would be required containing supervisory by the court, where the contract provides for personal affirmation acts or personal service. Which section of SRA deal about contract not specifically enforceable? 14. Which one of the following fact is not correct under section 14A of a specific Relief Act? The opinion of expert may not form part of the record. In a suit of SRA, which section empowered to court engage expert? 14A. The following contract cannot be specifically enforced. Contract which is in the nature, it is determinable. Contract not specifically enforceable. All of the above. A contract for non-performance of which compensation in money is an adequate relief. A contract which run into such minute and numerous detail. A contract the performance of which involve the performance of continuous duty which the court cannot supervise. Specific performance of contract may not be enforced if compensation in money is an adequate relief. Under section 15 of SRA, specific performance of contract may be obtained. All of the above. Any party of the contract, the representative in interest of the party of the contract, the principal of any party of the contract. Under section 16 of SRA, in a suit for a specific performance of contract, the plaintiff must aver performance of or readiness and willingness to perform. What is the meaning of readiness? Plaintiff capacity including financially. SRA, the specific performance of contract may obtain by all of these. Any party thereto, the representative in interest of party thereto, the principal of any party thereto. Which one of the following section deal with personal bar and remedies under SRA? Section 16. Within the meaning of section 15 of SRA, the assignee fails. Within the meaning of representative in interest or principal. A specific performance of contract cannot be enforced in a favor of a person all above who would not be entitled to recover the compensation for breach, who has become incapable for performing or violating any essential term of contract that on his part remain to be performed, who failed to aver and prove that he has performed or has always been ready to willingness to perform essential term of contract which to be performed by him. Provision regarding the person who may obtain specific performance are specified in section 15. A suit for a specific performance of contract for its enforcement can decreed when there exists no standard form of asserting the actual damage caused by the non-performance of it. Defendant is in possession of 120 patent bills. An agent of the plaintiff. As an agent of the plaintiff, plaintiff file a suit for a specific performance of contract against the defendant to compel the delivery of the same. The relief claimed can be refused on the ground that compensation in term of money would be afford adequate relief. Under which section of SRA, ready and willingness is necessary condition to specific performance of contract. Section 16 C. 16 subsection C. Which one of the following statement is correct? The court, while refusing to grant a specific performance of contract, cannot be grant refund and earnest money paid by the plaintiff unless it has been specifically claimed. The grant of decree of a specific performance of contract is discretionary. Under section 20C of SRA, for disposal of suit, maximum period provided for 18 months. Section 20A was inserted in SRA in respect of specific performance of contract, which are infrastructure projects. Point out on which one of the following ground court shall refuse the decree of specific performance. In a case where the contract is not enforceable at the instant of other party. Court power to award compensation is provided under SRA section 21. ASUB for a specific performance of contract. In the plaint, A seek the relief of a specific performance. He does not seek any relief in the alternative. The court determines that it cannot order the specific performance of contract. Can the court award the compensation instead? Compensation can be awarded only after the court allow the plaint to be amended for including a claim of compensation. Under section 21 of SRA, the court shall not award compensation unless the plaintiff has claimed it in his plaint. The plaintiff may ask for relief of possession, partition or refund the earnest money under section 22 of SRA where the suit for specific performance of contract for transfer of immovable property. In a suit for a specific performance of contract in which compensation has not been claimed, fresh suit for compensation is barred. Section 21 of SRA related to power to award compensation in certain cases. In a suit for specific performance of contract, the plaintiff has not claimed compensation for breach of substitution, where in a suit of specific performance of contract, the transfer immovable property. Burden of proof is on plaintiff to prove that breach of contract can be adequately relieved by compensation in money. Yes. Which one of the following prepositions is not correct? C is not correct. Which one correct are? It is not practicable for a court of law to force a linking between parties to enter into wedlock, and therefore contract for brothel or marriage cannot be enforced in species. A contract to take a loan cannot be specifically enforced because compensation can be adequate relief. A contract by guardian to purchase immovable property on behalf of minor can be specifically enforced provided there is competency of the guardian and legal necessity. In a suit for specific performance of agreement of sale of immovable property, the plaintiff must aware the proof of following: that plaintiff is ready and willingness to perform his part of contract, who may obtain specific performance of contract in his favor. All of the above. Any party to the contract, the representative in interest of the principal or any party. When a company has entered into contract and subsequently became amalgamated with another company, the new company which arises out of the amalgamation in a suit for specific performance of sale, the plaintiff should be alleged that he will be ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. In a case in which time has not been fixed for performance of agreement, the court refused to grant the specific relief of specific performance to the plaintiff on the ground that suit was not filed within reasonable time. The order is legal. In a court may not exercise its discretion to decree of specific performance of contract when contract give the plaintiff any unfair advantage over the defendant. In a suit for a specific performance of contract where earnest money is paid by the plaintiff, it can be refunded only if it is specifically claimed. To claim a specific performance of contract, it is necessary to plead and prove that plaintiff has always been ready and willingness to perform his part of contract. Jurisdiction of the court to enforce a specific performance of contract is discretionary. Where plaintiff in a suit for a specific performance prove the existence of agreement and non-performance of the defendant, the court is not bound to issue a decree of specific performance since the relief is discretionary. A court may deny specific performance of an agreement to sale of immovable property if the performance of the contract would involve hardship on the defendant, which he did not foresee, and non-performance would involve no such hardship to the plaintiff. A specific performance of contract means actual execution of contract according to its stipulation. Which one of the following section lays down the rule of discretionary power of court to grant a specific performance is not arbitrary but sound and reasonable. 20. The jurisdiction to the degree of specific performance is discretionary, and court is not bound to grant such relief merely because it is lawful to do so. This word can be taken from which section of SRA? Section 20. Provision regarding specific performance of contract are contained in Section 12. Under Section 9 of SRA, the defendant may plead defense under the law of contract. Section 12 of SRA deal with specific performance of part of contract. Which one of the following is a contract that cannot be specifically enforceable? Both a contract which is in its nature determinable and also dependent on the personal qualification. Section 12 of SRA permit to grant a specific performance of a part of law where the party left unperformed bear only small portion of whole in the value and admit the compensation in the money. Jurisdiction of the court to decree specific performance under SRA is none of these. What are cases in which specific performance of contract is enforceable? Both A and B. When there exists no standard for asserting the actual damage caused by the non-performance, when the act agreed to be done is such that compensation in money for its non-performance would not be afford an adequate relief. Which one of the following statement is incorrect in reference to specific Relief Act? The dismissal of suit for a specific performance of contract bar the plaintiff right to sue for compensation for breach of contract. In which one of the following cases performance of contract would be specifically enforceable by court? A contract to sell a painting by a well-known dead painter. In a suit for a specific performance of contract, court can award compensation to the plaintiff only if the plaintiff claims such compensation in his plaint. Ramesh and Geeta were husband and wife living in Bangalore. Ramesh was an income tax officer and Geeta was a school teacher. They had two sons studying in school in Bangalore. Parents of Ramesh were also studying with them. Ramesh was transferred to Madras and he had to leave his family behind at Bangalore. He promised to send every month rupee 30,000 to meet his family expenditure to his wife. Ramesh did not send any money from Madras. If Geeta filed a suit for a specific performance of contract, then which one of the following is correct? Family agreements are not contract, hence no order for its specific performance can be ordered. In a suit for a specific performance of contract, the plaintiff must assert the proof that he is always ready and willing to perform his part. Can the plaintiff sue the defendant for compensation for breach of contract after dismissal of suit for specific performance? Yes. A plaintiff prayed for declaration of contract as a void, and in alternative for specific performance of contract, it is irregular. Chapter 3, Rectification of Instrument, Section 26. In term of Section 26 of SRA, an instrument may be rectified only when it fails to express the real intention of the parties due to fraud or manual mistake of the party. An instrument may be rectified under SRA in Section 26. Section 26 of SRA contains the provision regarding the rectification of instrument. Mistake contemplated under Section 26 of SRA is all of the above: bilateral mistake, mutual mistake, mistake in framing of the instrument. Under Section 26 of SRA, for rectification of instrument on ground of fraud or mutual mistake, the time limit for discovery of fraud or mutual mistake is no time limit is fixed. Section 26 of SRA fixes the time limit for discovery of mistake or fraud to be none of the above. Under SRA, in which one of the following cases the court cannot order ratification of the instrument? C. Where the instrument is the article of association of company. This इसमें नहीं करेगा. Where the instrument through fraud does not express the real intention of the party, हो जाएगा. Where the instrument through mutual mistake does not express the real intention of party, हो जाएगा. Where the rectification of the instrument can be done without prejudice of right acquired by the third person in good faith, हो जाएगा. इसमें नहीं होगा. When due to fraud played by the parties, the contract in writing does not express its real intention, then appropriate remedy would be suit for rectification of instrument. When an instrument in writing does not express the real intention, then either party may institute suit for rectification of instrument. Remedies for rectification available under Section 26 of SRA related to mistake in expression of contract only. Which one of the following remedy are available when an instrument does not express the real intention due to fraud or mutual mistake of party? Rectification of instrument. The instrument may be rectified if Mutual mistake of parties. A mutual mistake of parties in instrument which does not express the real intention can be got rectified either party of the instrument by instituting a suit under section 26 of SRA. Under section 26 of SRA, the court may direct to rectify an instrument so as to express the real intention of the parties if there is a mutual mistake of the parties. Chapter 4, Rescission of Contracts, Section 27 to 30. Relief of rescission is granted in case both void and voidable contracts. Rescission of contract may be allowed if all of the above, where the contract is voidable at the instant of plaintiff, where the contract is void, where the third party acquired the interest in the contract in good faith. The parties which cannot be compelled to perform specific performance of contract are provided in which section of Specific Relief Act? Section 28. A plaintiff in a suit based upon contract for sale may seek the relief of rescission of contract in all of them, in alternate to the relief of specific performance, even after the decree for specific performance, under certain circumstances, if it is voidable by him. A suit for rescission of contract by any person having interest in it can decreed in his favor where the contract is voidable at the option of plaintiff. Where decree of specific performance of contract for sale of immovable property has been made and the purchaser within the period allowed by the court does not pay the purchase money, which court can order him to pay. The vendor may apply the same suit in which the decree is made to have been contract rescinded. Rescission may not be adjudicated by the court where the plaintiff has expressly or impliedly rectified the contract. In which one of the following case would rescission of a contract be adjudicated by the court? Where the contract is voidable by the plaintiff. A declaration made under Specific Relief Act is binding on both A and B, the parties to the suit, the person claiming through A. Chapter 5, Cancellation of Instruments, Section 31 to 33. Cancellations of instrument is mentioned in Section 31 to 33. Section 31 of SRA related to cancellation of instruments. Section 31 of SRA in its application is restricted to contracts only. A is minor, who poses himself as major and execute a mortgage before B for rupees 10,000. B file a suit for recovery of loan. A take a defense that he is not competent to contract when he took loan. In such situation, which one of the following statement is correct? Contract is void, but minor may order to pay 10,000 back. Under Section 33 of SRA, the compensation is payable if the party received the benefit. Chapter 6 Declaratory Decrees. Section 34 to 35. Which one of the following statements are true regarding a decree of declaration? All. It creates no new rights. It cannot be played as a matter of right. If all the parties are not joined, declaration cannot be granted. Such a decree is conclusive between parties to it and persons litigating through them. As per Section 34 of SRA 1964, no court shall make any such declaration in a case where plaintiff being able to seek further relief than a mere declaration of title or omits to do so. A declaratory decree between specific Relief Act can be declined. Under Section 34 of SRA, a declaration can be sought by a person having a legal character or a right as to property which is denied. No court shall declare that the plaintiff is entitled to a right if he is able to seek further relief than mere declaration, but omits to do so. Section 34 of SRA sanctions a declaration of legal character or of a right to property. Consider following facts regarding effect of declaration made under Section 34 of this Act of SRA. Declaration is binding on parties to the suit and the person claiming through them respectively. Right? Wrong. Declaratory decree can be granted under Section 34 of SRA. Plaintiff has filed a suit for only declaration of title, though he is not in possession of suit property. The suit is barred under which provision of SRA 1963? Section 34. Proviso of Section 34 of SRA related to suits for declaration. The grant or refusal of relief, declaration and injunction under provisions of Section 34 or of SRA is discretionary. Legal character or right under Section 34 of SRA must specific. Declaration given under Section 34 of SRA is binding on whom? All of the above. Only on the parties to the suit, only on the persons claiming through parties to the suit, trustee of the trust which is party to the suit. What is the effect of decree of declaration of title passed by the court? Binds the party to the suit only. Declaratory decree is binding only on all these: party to the suit, parties and their representative claiming through them, trustee. A suit filed by X for declaration that a year-old boy alleged born to defendant wife Y was not his son. The suit is competent and maintainable under Section 34 of SRA 1963. Part 3. Preventive Reliefs. Chapter 7. Injunction generally. Section 36 to 37. In which one of the following cases the prohibitory injunction under Specific Relief Act was discussed? Daulat Ram versus Gopi Kisan. Under Section 36 of Specific Relief Act, preventive relief is granted by injunction. What is true of temporary injunction? Continuous until a certain specific period. Find out the incorrect statement in respect of temporary injunction. Cannot be granted at any stage of the suit. An injunction granted during the pendency of suit under Section 37 of Specific Relief Act 1963 is known as temporary injunction. Temporary injunction can be granted ex parte. Section 36 to 42 of Specific Relief Act provides injunction. Which one of the following statement is wrong? Perpetual injunction can be granted without notice to and hearing the defendant. Which one of the following does not have to be pleaded in an application for temporary injunction? Malified intention of opposite party. An injunction can be granted when necessary to prevent multiplicity of judicial proceeding. Which one of the following is true of temporary injunction? It continue until a certain specific time. Under Section 37 of Specific Relief Act, a temporary injunction can be granted at any stage of the suit. Injunction granted under Specific Relief Act 1963 may be temporary or perpetual. Which section of Specific Relief Act provides for grant of temporary and permanent injunction? Section 37. Which one of the following feature of temporary injunction is not true? D is not true. It may be continue until specific time. It may continue until the further order of the court. It may be granted at any stage of the suit are correct. Perpetual injunction are governed by Specific Relief Act 1963. Perpetual injunction means all the above. What is the distinction between injunction, order and attachment order? Injunction order binds only the party to the suit, whereas attachment order not only bind parties to the suit but also the third party. Chapter 8 Perpetual Injunction, Section 38 to 44. The circumstances under which perpetual injunction can be granted have been enumerated under Section 38. A perpetual injunction is granted to the plaintiff to prevent the breach of obligation existing in his favor. Under Clause 3 of Section 38 of SRA, perpetual injunction can be granted when it is necessary to prevent multiplicity of the proceeding. Perpetual injunction may be granted under the SRA 1963. Section 38. To prevent the counting breach which the plaintiff has accused, the court cannot grant injunction. General principles on which perpetual injunction could be granted are contained in dash of specific relief. Section 38. In which one of the following cases would court not grant perpetual injunction? When the defendant invalid the threatens to invade the plaintiff to right to or enjoyment of property. Where the defendant is the agent of the plaintiff. Perpetual injunction can be granted under Section 38 of SRA when it is necessary to prevent multiplicity of the proceeding. SRA, what is true in respect of mandatory injunction? All of these. Compel the performance of certain positive act. It awarded when temporary injunction is meaningless. Retrospective in nature and restore things of their former condition. Mandatory injunction is granted under SRA when Section 39. The relief by way of mandatory injunction is discretionary. Mandatory injunction is in the nature is both restitutory and prohibitory. Mandatory injunction is governed by 39. Mandatory injunction under section 39 can be granted by none of the above. Provision of mandatory injunction is regulated by dash section of SRA 39. Section 39 of SRA deal with none of the above. Section 39 of SRA related with mandatory injunction. SRA. An injunction can be granted to restrain the wrongfully sale of any property in dispute in a suit in execution of decree. Provision regarding the grant of mandatory injunction has been made under which one of the following section of SRA? 39. When to prevent breach of obligation, it is necessary that to compel the performance of certain act which the court is capable of enforcing. Court may, under section 39 of SRA, grant mandatory injunction. When mandatory injunction cannot be issued, when the injury can be compensated by damage. A. File a suit for mandatory injunction under illegal disconnection of electricity. A. Also suffered loss in the business on account of non-supply of electricity. The suit for mandatory injunction is dismissed. A. Thereafter file a suit for damage for suffering loss. The subsequent suit is barred by under SRA. A suit for declaration without seeking consequential relief is barred by 34. A claim for damage in a suit for injunction can be laid down under section 40. As per section 40 of SRA, where an instrument of evidence of different rights of different obligation of court may be proper case. Cancel it in part and allow it to stand for reduce. The principle enshrined in the specific Relief Act Mcq Injunction are not applicable to the temporary injunction. Under Order 39 of CPC, the said statement is not correct. Under which one of the following circumstances a court can grant perpetual injunction? All the above. To prevent multiplicity of judicial proceeding, when compensation is money would not afford the adequate relief, no standard for asserting actual damage exists. If a contract comprises of agreement to do an act and also not to do certain act, injunction can be granted to compel performance of both or any of them. The relief of injunction cannot be granted. All of these, when equally effective relief can be obtained by any other usual mode of proceeding, the plaintiff is not come to the court with clean hand, to prevent nuisance when it is not reasonably clear. In a suit for injunction under section 14 of 40 of SRA, damage can be awarded either to addition or in substitution of the injunction. Specific Relief Act. An injunction is not granted. All of these. To restrain any person from prosecuting a judicial proceeding pending at the institution of suit in which injunction is sought unless such restraint is necessary to prevent multiplicity of the proceeding. To restrain any person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in a court not subordinated to the form which the injunction is sought. To restrain any person for applying to any legislative body. Which one of the following statement is incorrect in context of section 41 of SRA? None of these. All are correct. Court cannot grant injunction to restrain any person for applying to any legislative body. The court cannot grant injunction to prevent the continuing breach in which plaintiff acquiesces. Court cannot grant injunction to restrain any person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in criminal matter. Court cannot be granted injunction when the plaintiff has got no personal interest in the matter. An injunction cannot be granted to restrain a person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in court not subordinated to that from which injunction is sought. Under SRA, when injunction can be granted to prevent breach of contract, the performance of which would be specifically enforced. Section 42 of SRA provide for injunction to perform negative agreement. Court is empowered to grant an injunction to perform a negative agreement where the contract comprises of affirmative agreement to do a certain act compelled with the negative agreement not to do certain act. What is true of perpetual injunction? All of the above. It is judicial process preventive in nature, things prevented as a wrongful act. Injunction cannot be granted in the suit in which the specific performance cannot be enforced. Mandatory injunction is both B and C, prospective in operation, concurrent in operation. A is B medical advisor. He demands money from B, which B declines to pay. A then threatens to make known effective of B communication to him patient. Both B, A and B. B may obtain prohibitory injunction to restrain A from doing so. B may obtain mandatory injunction ordering A to destroy all written communication made by B as patient of A, in which case the court can grant injunction to restrain any person for deposed by process. where whether a suit by social club for decree of perpetual injunction against police is maintainable to restrain them from filing criminal proceeding, as according to the plaintiff, police has it. No. Whether injunction to perform negative agreement can be granted? Yes. An injunction order specific relief act can be granted to restrain to publication of defamatory sentence. Section 44 of SRA related to repeal. Miscellaneous. Specific relief can be given in the form of all of the above. Injunction, stay, specific remedy. Specific Relief Act is a product of 9th Report of Law Commission of India on SRA of 1877. Specific Relief Act applies to both movable or immovable property. Specific performance as a remedy for breach of contract exists in Specific Relief Act. Specific Relief Act is all of this: remedial in nature, protective in nature, a subordinate law. Statutory recognition of principle of equity in specific relief is regarding all of the above: specific performance, injunction, rectification, or rescission. The basis of specific relief is law of equity. The relief provided under specific relief is discretionary. Plaintiff proved that there is a breach of contract of transfer of an immovable property. The court has discretion to grant or refuse such decree. What is the meaning of principle of quia taimet in the context of law of injunction? Some future probable injury to right or interest of a person. Following pair are not correctly matched. A is not correctly matched. Power to award compensation in certain case, section 21. Liquidation of damages on damages not a bar of a specific performance, section 23. Temporary or perpetual injunction, section 37. Under SRA, which one of the following kind of remedy can be granted? Making of instrument. SRA is based on the maxim UP just ibi remedium. What does it mean? Where there is a right, there has to be a remedy. There has to be a remedy. In suit for recovery of possession of a person disposed of possession of immovable property under SRA, which one is not essential requirement of the suit? Suit cannot be brought against the government. Suit cannot be maintained whether disposition is in due course of law or not. Whether specific performance of an earlier agreement to sale of an immovable property can be granted against the person who has subsequently purchased the subject property. The proposed buyer under agreement to sell seek specific performance of contract to sell immovable property, even if subsequent purchaser is purchaser for value, but with notice to a prior agreement to sell. Within what time? from the date of service of summons to defendant, a suit filed under the provision of SRA should be disposed of. 12 month. Which one of the following remedy cannot be granted under SRA? Issuance of writ. Choose the true statement about prepositions. Contract for sale is patent, can specifically enforced. A contract to assign copyright is specifically enforceable. This too is right. Principle of qua timate means some future probability injury to right of interest of a person.